Hi everybody, hope y'all are doing well. I just sat down to film my July-August wrap-up and it was one of the most unpassionate videos that I've ever filmed in my entire life, and I struggled to understand whether that was because of the fact that I just didn't read any amazing books in the past 2 months, or if I'm on booktube burnout. My last video, which is a book haul where you saw me looking very, very excited, and I promise I was excited, was still very difficult for me to film because I just had no passion for what I was doing. And it's kind of scary because it's making me question whether I want to be on booktube anymore, which when I think about it is a stupid question because yes, I want to be on booktube, right? Like, I don't want to stop my channel, but it's concerning whenever I sit down to film a video, I just feel tired, I feel drained, I feel like I'm forcing myself to sit down and speak in front of the camera. I'm feeling like that now. So I don't know, man, like, I don't know, maybe I need to take a little bit of a break from booktube. If you haven't noticed, I've been kind of somewhat taking a break from social media, other social media platforms like Instagram and Twitter as well, just because the internet is just not the best place for me right now. I don't know how I'm feeling. I really want this wrap up to go up. I really want to talk about the books because I have this thing where it's like I need to wrap up the books that I talk about. I can't let a book go without being wrapped up. You know, it's a routine thing for me on this channel. If anything must be consistent on this channel, it must be my wrap-ups. So let me just tell you the books that I read over the past 2 months. I'm not going to go in any amount of detail. I read two middle grade books, two classic middle grade books, sorry. Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl, and I also read this Dr. Seuss book. Oh my god, it's on the tip of my tongue, and it's the environment and the little guy he looked like a testicle with a mustache. The Lorax. So The Lorax and Fantastic Mr. Fox, didn't really give a shit about both of these books. They're cute books, nice stories, great messages. I don't really need two dead old white men to tell me that capitalism is bad. I kind of figured that out on my own. So the stories didn't really contribute anything to my life, but they were very interesting, and it's good to know. It's good to be a little bit more cultured, you know, and know what people are talking about when they talk about, you know, things like The Lorax and Fantastic Mr. Fox. Well, can't even remember that. I read another middle grade book, which is Ticket to India by Anit Sanjay, which is about a girl called Maya who goes to Pakistan to visit her grandmother after her grandfather dies, and then while she's there, she goes over to India to retrieve something that once belonged to her grandmother, who used to live in Amnipur before partition of India and Pakistan. So it was a really interesting story that kind of delved into the history of India and Pakistan in a way that wasn't too info-dumpy. It was really more so a middle grade adventure story about this little girl, this Pakistani American girl, traversing the streets of India trying to find this thing that once belonged to her grandmother that she doesn't even know whether it's still there or not. So it's a really interesting story. I highly recommend it if you like middle grade, if you like road trip-esque type of stories, and you've never really read anything set in India before. This is definitely a really good place to start with that. I also appreciate how this book tries to highlight the long-lasting effects of partition, which is something that we in the West don't talk about enough. One thing I will say though is that I didn't really appreciate the Gandhi praise in this book. Gandhi, suffice to say, is a bit problematic, and to continue painting him in the figure of this noble person that we've known him to be really misrepresents a lot of who he was as a person, in my personal opinion. So I'm not really so much here for the Gandhi praise, but everything else was pretty good. I also read The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, which is a book told in verse about a girl called Xiomara Batista, who is from Brooklyn and is struggling with her very, very strict Dominican Christian mother, who wants her to be nothing but a good Christian girl, which is nothing like what Xiomara actually is or wants to be. And it's a story about how she finds herself through poetry and through the spoken word. It's well written, the characters are really well fleshed out, the story was very engaging, the themes that the author touched on were done really well. Overall, it's fantastic. I gave it 4 stars. I see all of the hype. Then I read Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, which is a multi-generational family saga that focuses on the experiences of the Korean-Japanese diasporas. It's set between the 1930s and the 1980s, and it's looking at this family, particularly this woman called Sanja, who comes from Japanese-occupied Korea and moves to Japan, and we're following her and her kids who are born and raised there, and how people who are Korean and are of Korean descent living in Japan have a very, very, very different history and different experience from the general Japanese population. It was a really enlightening read, but it was also a beautiful and heartbreaking read, one that will stay with me forever. So it was cool. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read some West Indian books. I read How to Love a Jamaican by Alexia Arthurs. Everybody's been talking about this collection, and I definitely see why. Alexia Arthurs hits us with these really, really beautiful short stories about Jamaicans and Jamaican Americans and the Jamaican experience. They're also very different to reflect the diversity of experiences of people from Jamaica, and I really appreciated that. I would prefer to read something like a full-length novel from her, because I'd love to see how she would handle characters in a long-term story. The collection, while it was really great, there were some stories that I didn't really care for, and there were some that I liked a lot more. And for that, it's just your regular mixed bag collection of short stories that I gave 3.5 stars to. It was great, and I do look forward to reading more from this author. Hopefully something longer and more substantial. And then finally I read The Yard by Aliyah Inayat, which is about an Indo-Trinidadian Muslim family who all live on this compound called The Yard. I've talked about this book before and how I saw a lot of aspects of my own community represented in this book, because myself coming from an Indo-Trinidadian Muslim family community, I saw a lot of my own family and my own community dynamics represented in this story. But it was also extremely different from my experience, because the main focus of the story itself looks at these 2 siblings, Maya and Beiruz. Maya was born into the family, Beiruz was adopted into the family when he was around 11 years old, and it follows them from that point for about like 3 more decades. The book ends when they're like in their 40s, and it follows just the complexity of their relationship as they grow apart and grow together and then grow apart again. It's a really, really great story that, as it rightfully says on the back, explores the fault lines in Indo-Muslim culture in Trinidad, and I really appreciated this story. It's the first time I've ever seen a story, any form of media, represent a community that's so similar to mine, an Indian Trinidadian Muslim community, and I really appreciated that. And whilst it wasn't the most amazing book I've ever read, and whilst I did have substantial issues with it, I gave it 4 stars because I really want to see more stories like this, more stories that represent people like me put out there in the world. And those are all of the books that I read over the past 2 months. Again, I just didn't really read anything that sparked my inner flame, you know? Like, ever since I read Love from A to Z, nothing has been able to top that. Nothing has been able to top Love and Lies of Roxana Ali. I've read 23 books for the year so far, y'all, and I've only read 2 5-star books. So yeah, we need to work on that. I'm reading some really great books right now, so I'm hoping that changes by hopefully the end of September. But either way, I guess this is a natural thing that happens every now and again. When you have a hobby, you'll always encounter little bumps in the road. Don't get too scared. I don't think I'll be canceling my booktube channel anytime soon, but I just wanted you all to know that I really came close to that in these past couple of weeks, because I've lost my touch a little bit, and hopefully by the time I upload a few more videos I'll regain it. But these are all of the books that I have to talk about with you all today. In the comments down below, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books and if you have any thoughts on them. Thank you all ever so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely day, and until next time, inshallah, keep reading.